Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Stealth Hitch on a 2022 Audi Q8. And you're probably wondering, where is it? And that's the great part about the Stealth Hitch, is it looks completely stock. You can't tell that you have a hitch until you're ready to get your accessories loaded, and then you'll simply take your receiver, pop this in place, and then you'll be ready to go. Now this is a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, so this is going to accept a lot of different accessories, and this is only meant to be used with accessories because it's not for towing. In fact, you can see here on the receiver, it'll actually tell you not for towing. And if you are planning on towing a trailer, there's actually some significant towing numbers, but you're going to need to pick up the tow package, which will actually have a ball mount that will pop in place. It's also going to have your safety chain loops as well as your wiring. But if you just pick up the normal kit, you can only use this with your accessories like your cargo carriers, your bike racks, and also it's not going to come with a pin and clip. A lot of your accessories will, but you're going to want to have a 5/8 pin and clip, and that way you can get your accessories in place. We also have locking ones available, and that way you can actually get your receiver in, you can lock that in place and it's not going to go anywhere, but also your accessories, once they're locked in place, will also stay on the vehicle and not walk away in the hands of someone else. Now, as far as weight ratings go, since you are going to be loading some accessories on here that may be suspended, the tongue weight's going to be 800 pounds. The chances of overloading that are going to be really slim, so your cargo carriers, bike racks, as long as they can support the weight, you should be able to really load this thing up. Now, with some of those accessories that fold up, like cargo carriers or bike racks, you're going to want to make sure that you have clearance on your rear fascia. But our pin and clip hole here is about center with the furthest point of our rear fascia, so most accessories shouldn't have any issues folding up. Just something you want to check when choosing those accessories. Now, as far as ground clearance goes, we're looking at right at about 15 inches, and that's going to be pretty good. I really don't worry about this ever making contact, but your accessories, when loaded up and extended, as you go up an incline, they can kind of get closer to the ground. So when you're going up hills, or even if you're on some rough terrain, you might just keep that in mind while driving. In terms of install, this hitch is actually not too bad. A lot of the Stealth hitches, especially on European cars, can get really tricky, but this Audi was actually pretty straightforward. Now, the interesting part is you will have to pull the fascia off to gain access to pull your bumper beam off to put the hitch in place, but you can't unplug the fascia, so very important not to do that. But you are going to want to have some extra sets of hands to kind of allow you to get that off safely and have a place to store that. And really, shouldn't take too much longer than an hour, hour and a half, and I'm going to walk you through all those steps to make sure that you get yours installed. So let's take a look at that. Now, to begin our installation, we are eventually going to be removing the rear fascia, so we're going to need to pull off some panels to allow us to get that off, and that's going to start with popping open our hatch, and we're going to have these covers here by our taillights, so we're going to need to pry these off. You'll see in the bottom corner here, there's a little notch, and you can use a flathead. I'm going to use a plastic trim panel tool. You want to be careful not to break or chip your taillights. So just kind of prying up here and working along. There's going to be some clips that just kind of keep these in place. So just take your time and be patient. We should be able to get these popped out. So just kind of working along those edges, you can see those little notches there that kind of hold that in. This slides out, and that's going to gain us access to our Torx bits that are holding in our taillight. Now, these are going to be a T25, so we'll go ahead and get our bit and get these taken out. Now, during this whole process, you're going to want to have a nice place to keep your hardware organized. That way, when you reinstall everything, you'll have everything ready to go. Now, there's also going to be one more T25, and it's going to be right here, and that's just the fascia bolting on. We're going to go ahead and remove that as well. Now we need to go ahead and remove the taillight, and that's just going to be accomplished by kind of moving this back and forth and pulling pressure, just kind of grabbing on the side of the light. You want to be careful. You have two tabs here, and that's pretty much where they pop in. So kind of putting pressure there with your hand while pulling on this side will help. Now we're going to need to also unplug our taillight. So just underneath here, there's a tab we'll push in, and that's just going to separate easily. So now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same steps on the other side of the vehicle. Now we're going to go to our wheel well, and on the liner on the rear here, there's going to be two T25s. We're going to go ahead and get those removed. Now we're going to pull back our wheel well liner, And you're going to see there's going to be one more T25, so we'll go ahead and get that one as well. We're going to need to pull this liner off, or our fender trim, and we're going to pop open our rear door. And there's going to be just a series of clips that kind of snap into place here. So just kind of be careful, because you don't want to crease this. So pulling it out can actually cause a permanent crease. So take your time working your way and just kind of go one clip at a time. So using a plastic trim panel tool is definitely a great way to kind of get this separated. So we'll just kind of work our way. And also, if you want to put a little bit of tape, if you don't have a trim panel tool like this, just to tape along here just to kind of prevent any scratches. That's a nice little preventative measure there. And we got one large one up here. And with this taken off, we're going to go ahead and just repeat the same steps on the other side. So now we're going to find that there's two more T25s on our rear fascia. We'll go ahead and get those removed. Now you're going to want to head underneath the fascia, and there's going to be 4 T25s that are going to be attaching it to this heat shield under here. So we'll go ahead and get those removed. There's going to also be 4 on each side of the vehicle, so we'll go ahead and get those removed. Now we're going to be getting ready to take our fascia and pop it off. Now before we do that, we're going to want to put some painter's tape along these seams. So where our fascia meets the rear quarter panel, this is just going to help us when we put it back in place, and also as we're taking it off, sometimes those clips can kind of rub against the paint and that can cause scratches. So just for a little preventative measure here, we'll just go ahead and I'm going to tape both sides. Now you're also going to want to grab an extra set of hands here shortly and have a spot set up for your fascia. Unfortunately, with this Audi, you're not able to completely unplug the electrical connections to completely remove the fascia and set it aside. So we're going to have to set up an area to where we can have that resting while we get our hitch in place. So I have my cart set up to rest our fascia, and it's going to go over to the driver's side. So remember, do not unplug the electrical connection. And the best way to probably get this off safely is I'm going to start on the passenger. We're going to pry back a little bit. There's going to be a series of clips along here. And once I kind of get this popped off, I'm going to get my extra set of hands to kind of hold this up as I make my way over, and then we can pop off the driver's side. So just take your time here. You don't want these clips to break. So we'll just kind of slowly work our way here, and just by hand I'm able to get these. Now up top, these clips are actually kind of tabbed into it, so you might need to press down. You can use your plastic trim panel tool to just push that through. You don't want these clips to break, but it should be pretty easy to kind of get those down and popped out. You just push on that black plastic there, and then just put a little bit of pressure to pull this outward, and that way it can kind of unhinge, and then we'll just slowly work our way over here. And same thing, you're gonna have some of these clips, so you're gonna want to kind of separate it from the black plastic. So just take your time, be careful here. With this tab here, I'm just gonna kind of push this white plastic as I pull back. Now you're gonna see there's also gonna be one right down here that's kind of hidden, but it's gonna be the same method that we just did on this clip. So go ahead, put pressure on the white part and just kind of pull back, and that should separate. Once we get this popped out, I'm gonna grab my extra set of hands, and they're gonna support this bumper, and that way I can work on this side. Now we can see our electrical connection here, and you can see it's pretty tight. It's not allowing us to move too terribly much here. These clips, we're gonna just kind of get these popped off, and they're kind of just snapped into place on this ledge here on the bumper. You can just snip the zip tie. Just be careful obviously not to nick your wires here, and this is gonna allow us to get that clip or this wire off, but we'll have to run a zip tie through later to reattach it. But you can see now we have a little bit more room to play with. I'll go ahead and get this one off as well. We're gonna kind of just swing this over, and that way we'll have our spot here to rest our fascia on. If you need to, you can use the box that comes with the hitch to kind of lay that out. Just make sure there's no staples on there. We really just need to get it out of the way to gain access to our impact bar. So now we're going to have our factory bolts on our impact bar. Now the impact bar, we're not going to be using. Our hitch is just going to go in place here, but we are going to be reusing the factory hardware. So make sure you hold on to that. And it's going to be an 18mm socket to get these off. And there's going to be a total of 4 on each side. So now we can go ahead and get our factory reinforcement bar here off, and we can discard this and we'll go grab our hitch. Now you're going to see there is a factory stud there, and that was just to hold the reinforcement beam up. So I'm going to actually use that stud to kind of hold this in place. And then we'll grab our hardware, and I'm just going to get a few hand tightened on each side, and that's going to allow us to get the rest of the hardware in safely. Now there's a little bit of room to adjust your hitch, not a whole heck of a lot, as the holes are not that much larger, but just go ahead and make sure it's centered up. And then I'm going to just kind of hold this in place as I tighten these down. Now I'm going to come back with a torque wrench to make sure they're at the proper torque setting, so you really don't have to crank these down too much. You just want these snug. So now I'm going to go back with our torque wrench and just torque these down using the torque setting in the instruction manual. Now if you need a torque wrench, we have them available here at eTrailer. You can generally rent them at an auto parts store. But this is important. It's going to make sure that they're not too tight, putting stress on those threads, but also that it's not going to become loose over time. And we're also going to need it for when we put our receiver block in, so you can keep this handy after torquing these down. Now we're going to take our receiver block, and our key side tumbler is going to go on the driver's side. So we'll just raise this in place, take our bolts, pass these through, and then we're going to follow it up with some nylon lock nuts here. And we're going to get these tightened down. These are going to be a 15/16. So we'll tighten them down. You're going to need a wrench on one side as you tighten the other, and then we're going to go back and torque that down with our torque wrench. Now we're going to go back with our torque wrench, and the torque setting is different than the previous one, so just refer to your instruction manual to get that proper setting, and we'll go ahead and get these torqued down. Now I've gone ahead and marked out on our fascia. We're going to need to trim to gain access to our receiver. So this is, I just used the instruction manual to kind of get this laid out, and I use painter's tape just to give us a visual cue, and that way you can get some nice clean lines. Best way to do this, I'm using an oscillating tool. I really like this for nice clean lines, but if you have a Dremel, that's going to work fine. Just be careful because you do have these sensors here. There's also one down here, so that's why I tape them out of the way. That way we don't nick them on accident. So go ahead and start making your cuts. Pop this out, and you're probably going to be left with some plastic burrs. I'm going to go back with my file and just kind of clean these up and kind of take any of those rough spots out. So just running the file along here should knock down a lot of them. Now after we get our burrs cleaned up and we're happy with that, we're just going to reinstall everything in the reverse order that we took it out. I have everything back in place, and really all that's left to do before enjoying our hitch, there's a rubber plug at the bottom. You're just going to want to pry that out, and your keys are going to come out of there. Now you're going to want to take this code that's on there and write it on the sheet that's included. That way if you need a replacement, you can easily get that. And we're going to want to just pull this plug on the left. That's just to cover our tumbler. And we're just going to twist this to where it is in an unlocked position. So just get that key in there, and you'll know that it's unlocked when the tumbler kind of pops out. It's spring loaded, and you'll see you have the handle here, and this is going to allow us to get our receiver in. So you can just twist this back. It should lock in place like that, and then we'll take our receiver here, give it a pressure up. Once you hear that pop, you're good to go. You can simply lock that in, Put your cap back on and you're ready to go. And that was a look and installation of the Stealth Hitch receiver on a 2022 Audi Q8.